right now on Morning News Now. You could call it a hot mess. Literally, this morning, millions of Americans are waking up to severe storms and scorching heat. And now the threat of record-breaking temperatures is spreading, set to bring high temperatures into the Midwest and Northeast this week. And all of that extreme weather is causing trouble for travelers.
What we can confidently say is that climate change is increasing the amount of clear air turbulence in the atmosphere.
So what's going on, and is there an end in sight? Our team is tracking it all. Also this morning, a battle at the border. The Justice Department and the state of Texas are in a legal showdown over this 1,000-foot barrier floating in the Rio Grande to keep migrants away. Now, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has just hours to get the buoys out of the water. We'll bring you the latest. Plus, AI regulation this morning. Some of the top names in tech are now working together on ways to better regulate artificial intelligence. More on the agreement they made with the White House, including an executive order set to be signed by President Biden. And she put her signature B in Blockbuster. That's right, Barbie took the top spot at the box office, with Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer also outperforming projections in its opening weekend. We'll take you to the movies for more on the hype and what it could mean for the future of Hollywood.
Did you see either one this weekend?
Not yet, but they're both on my to-do list. Did you?
Me neither.
No.
We're the only
Yes.
two who didn't go. But we're still going to talk about it later on. Good morning. Good to have you with us on this Monday. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Ellison Barber in for Savannah Sellers. This morning, 28 million Americans are under heat alerts as extreme temperatures continue to hit large portions of the country, from the Southwest all the way to Miami.
And get ready. This week, those extreme temperatures are expected to expand beyond those regions. Forecasters say the heat wave will soon cover much of the U.S. Cities like Miami have been dealing with the dangerous heat for more than a month now. Today is the 44th consecutive day the city has seen a heat index above 100 degrees, and that sweltering streak will continue through this week.
I don't remember the summers ever being this bad. This has been awful. These weeks have been rough to get through. Yeah.
The West is also baking. Phoenix is in the middle of its own hot streak, with folks there dealing with 25 days straight of temperatures over 110 degrees. So far, the Midwest and Northeast have avoided the extreme heat wave, but forecasters say that ends this week. The oppressive heat is expected to expand into those regions in the coming days. And it's not just here in the U.S. The extreme heat is also being felt overseas in China and in southern Europe, with dangerous temperatures recorded in countries like Italy and Greece. We've got team coverage on the extreme heat all morning. We begin with NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra. She joins us now from Miami. So, Marissa, as we said, day 44 with the heat index above 100 degrees where you are. Describe for us what the heat feels like this morning, what it's felt like over the last few days there.
Hey, yes, two very different answers there. Remember, it is about 7 in the morning here, so the sun is just barely starting to rise. It actually feels pretty nice right now because it's 7 in the morning. So it's 85 degrees right now, feels like 97. Now, that's a big jump, right? But it's going to get oppressively hot, of course, as the sun gets higher. It gets in those later afternoon hours. That's when it is just pretty much downright unbearable to be outside, and even by Miami standards, because again, this is an area that knows heat. In fact, you mentioned a lot of cities that know heat, Phoenix being one of them, Miami being another. It gets humid, it gets hot, but you just mentioned 44 consecutive days of a real feel in the triple-digit temps, add in humidity. It gets pretty difficult to be outside for much longer than you have to, really, even for people who live here. We talked to a number of them, and they said, yeah. Again, even for the people that are used to heat, this is a lot.
Yeah, and if Miami's complaining, then you know it's something. I mean, emergency responders,
Right.
They're seeing an increase in heat calls all over the country. That includes where you are in Miami. They also have to wrestle with the heat, especially with all the gear they have to wear. So what precautions are they taking?
Yeah, one of them being they're actually doubling up their units, that is personnel when they arrive on the scene for emergencies. We actually had a chance to speak with the chief fire officer for Miami-Dade County. Listen for yourself.
We're just trying to take extra precautions, trying to take more breaks, definitely hydrate a lot more. On emergency scenes, calls that might have taken, 5 or 6 units, we're pretty much doubling personnel to rotate crews in and out much quicker, giving them short amount of time to work and more rest in between.
So the reason for that being twofold. I mean, not only is it just the fact that these are humans too, and they're having to wear all that heavy gear when they're doing something like fighting a fire, or just bare minimum going to a heat call, checking up on someone. Because it is so hot, they're having to be exposed to the heat in a way that's even different than the way we are, because they have to do it often, and they also have to wear equipment while they're doing it. But then on top of that, something that is just a running theme here, because we've been talking about this heat for weeks straight. It's just the consecutive nature of this. I mean, we've talked about this across different cities that we've been reporting on heat from, and it again is the consecutive nature, the marathon, if you will, that has them taking extra precautions to make sure that they can finish cross the finishing line whenever that finish line makes itself known, Joe, because this seems to be going on endlessly.
Yeah, definitely not in sight right now. Very quickly, Marissa, while we have you, I want to ask you what's going on out west in Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, two different types of heat, but heat is heat. It's a drier heat out there, but I will say it was very difficult to be outside for more than a few minutes. I mean, that is a very dangerous situation because you have asphalt heating up to 160, sometimes 180 degrees, people getting third-degree burns just from touching the asphalt for a few seconds, Joe. So very different types of heat, but dangerous nonetheless.
All right, Marissa Parra in Miami. Marissa, thank you so much.
NBC News foreign correspondent Josh Letterman joins us now from Rhodes, Greece. Josh, we can see that wildfire burning behind you. It has been burning there, a number of wildfires since Tuesday. Have fire crews been able to make any sort of progress?
On the Greek mainland, they have, Ellison, but here on the island of Rhodes, just to put it bluntly, the fire is totally outside of control at this point in time. You can see there's a bit of an active fire burning just behind me here, but if you look over here to this valley, I mean, it is just completely covered in smoke, devastated over the last week or so by these wildfires, and you can see just how windy it is right now, and that is really the big problem, because that is whipping up these flames, making it almost impossible for firefighters to fight, also making it hard to predict where it's going to go. We are safely upwind of the fire now, thankfully, but earlier today we were in the village of Gennady as it was being evacuated. This is a coastal village here in Rhodes, and just a few minutes later, the whole village really started to come under fire. That fire has now pushed all the way through the village, all the way to the coast. So it goes to show you just how unpredictable it is, as 19,000 people have already been evacuated here in Greece, the largest evacuation in the country's history. And now there is a brand new fire burning on the island of Corfu. Thousands of people being evacuated there as well, Allison.
Wow, Josh, and it's not just Greece, right? Italy is another European country that's been getting hit hard by the heat. What is the latest there this morning?
Yeah, in Sicily over the weekend, Ellison, they saw temperatures above 116 degrees, and they are facing wildfires there, too. A big concern in Italy is they're starting to see their death toll as a result of this extreme heat mount. They now have at least 5 reported deaths. Authorities there very concerned that that toll is just going to grow.
And Josh, Pope Francis has also addressed the climate crisis. He talked about it yesterday. What did he have to say?
Yeah, that's right. We heard the Pope at St. Peter's Square yesterday really talking about the fact that we're seeing this extreme heat in Europe, flooding in South Korea, and citing that to say, look, it's obvious we're not doing enough. He is calling on world leaders to really step up their game on climate change, saying it is clear we have no more time to waste on this. The Pope, though, is also sending a message of solidarity to those who are hardest hit by climate change, as well as to those around the world who are doing their best to help them. Ellison.
Josh Letterman in Greece, thank you so much.
Let's take a closer look at the week ahead and get a check on your morning News Now forecast. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us with that. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning to you guys, and we're going to see more of the same. It's a new week, and we're going to see that heat continuing, intense heat, dangerous heat, record-breaking heat, and it does not look like there's an end in sight. So let's start with what we're looking at today, because we're looking at 30 million Americans under a heat alert once again. We have heat advisories, that's in the orange, also excessive heat warning, including Salt Lake City, Phoenix, Miami. Miami, you're going to be in the 90s, but you factor in the humidity, it's going to feel like over 100 degrees. Triple digits in Phoenix, triple digits in Salt Lake City, and we're going to see triple digits as far north as the Intermountain West, also the Rockies. Take a look at some of these numbers. 100 degrees today in Salt Lake City. That's 8 degrees above normal. Billings, same story, 100 degrees, 93 in Bismarck. It's warm too in Minneapolis, 91. So you can see how far-reaching this heat is. 110 in Tucson and 102 today in El Paso. As we go throughout tomorrow, more of the same, but notice it shifts off to the east. So we're seeing this heat dome still tacked in place, but expanding to portions of the northern plains, the Intermountain West, the east, and then eventually into the northeast. So tomorrow, Roswell, New Mexico, we're looking at 106, 13 degrees above average. Minneapolis, warm once again, 94, 96 in Rapid City. And we're looking at triple digits in Pueblo, Amarillo, and also Dallas, Wichita. You're going to be at 101. That's 9 degrees above normal. So this is what's happening. We're seeing that jet stream lifting to the north. That heat dome is expanding. So we're seeing that heat spread 10 to 15 degrees above average in parts of the Great Lakes, the Midwest, and Northern Plains, and then eventually into the Northeast, where we're going to see temperatures in New York City by Thursday into the mid-90s, 95 by Friday. That's not the only problem. We're going to factor in the humidity there. It's going to feel like very close to 100 degrees. Cleveland, we're into the 90s. Kansas City, 99 on Thursday, 98 on Friday. And this is the heat index. This is what it feels like on our body. So it's going to feel like close to 100 degrees in New York City on Friday. It's going to feel like 103 in Norfolk. You get the idea. We're not going to see any break from this heat. And then as we look towards next week, warmer than average. No surprise, I guess, in portions of the south, into the central plains, the southeast, into the mid-Atlantic, and parts of the northeast as well. That's one side of the story today, a big major weather story. We're also looking at the chance for summer storms, summer showers. We're looking at some really heavy showers in parts of the central plains right now. Also the Carolinas. I've been watching this over the past few hours, so some really heavy rain falling. It's a pair of fronts that will be moving through, bringing those widely scattered storms, and some could be pretty strong with the chance of winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour, some hail, even the chance of a tornado or two. And guys, as part of that climate connection, we're looking at the chance too for some really heavy downpours. Warming atmosphere holds a lot more moisture, and when we have these drenching downpours, we could see some flooding as well. Back to you.
All right, Michelle, thank you. All this extreme weather, it is having an impact on airline passengers this summer. 26,000 flights have been canceled since Memorial Day, which is the start of the busy summer travel season. As NBC's Tom Costello explains, some airline CEOs warn the climate change effect is here to stay.
431 LaGuardia has been caught in a ground stop.
In a summer of extreme heat, torrential rain, and violent storms.
We're just looking at these thunderstorms that we're monitoring.
We've got thunderstorms north of Houston, around the San Antonio area.
How are you? All right. Have a great day.
The nation's airports and airlines have been in the bullseye, with cancellations running days on end. Since Memorial Day weekend, 343,000 flights delayed, nearly 26% of the total.
LaGuardia has entered into a ground stop. This is for weather and thunderstorms in the area.
In late June, hundreds of thousands of passengers were grounded after violent storms parked over Newark and Denver for days. Most affected, United Airlines, forced to cancel up to a third of its flights.
It's historically unprecedented, at least, to have multi-day events.
Now, United's CEO is warning this could be the new normal.
Irregular operations events are going to be more likely to occur as the climate warms, more heat in the atmosphere, thermodynamics 101, we're going to have more thunderstorms.
100 above. Checked.
Atmospheric researchers agree and say high-altitude turbulence has also grown stronger over the decades, sending service cars, food, drinks, and passengers flying.
Do we have any trained medical personnel? Do we have any doctors, nurses?
It already happens 5,500 times each year and projected to grow 2 to 3 times worse in the years to come.
What we can confidently say is that climate change is increasing the amount of clear air turbulence in the atmosphere.
While airlines can warn pilots of turbulence ahead, violent thunderstorms remain the biggest threat.
The number one cause of delays and cancellations is weather.
The NTSB says the increasingly volatile weather and turbulence underscore the need for passengers to wear their seatbelts in flight. It's flight attendants who suffer 78% of injuries during unexpected turbulence because they're most often up and about. Back to you.
Tom, thanks for that.
The showdown at the southern border is heating up. The Justice Department has given the state of Texas until today to commit to removing a controversial barrier on the Rio Grande River or face legal action. At issue, this 1,000-foot-long floating barrier. It was designed and installed to keep migrants from crossing the Rio Grande from Mexico into the U.S., but federal officials say it violates federal law and also poses major humanitarian concerns. NBC News has reached out to Texas Governor Greg Abbott for comment, but he has yet to respond. NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley joins us now for more on this. So, Julia, walk us through the DOJ's argument here. What laws does it say are being broken by Governor Abbott?
Well, they say it violates the Rivers and Harbors Act. It also could be an obstruction of the federal government's official duties. And they say that it can endanger public safety. Immigration is a federal law, Joe. And so they're saying that this is actually impeding their ability to safely process migrants who typically would cross the Rio Grande, come to them and process them there. And remember, they're already dealing with barbed wire and fencing and along a lot of the border barriers like Trump's border wall. So it's not like there's been nothing to impede them. But the idea is that this is the first time they've been impeded in the water. Previously, migrants would cross the Rio Grande, and before they would get to that other barrier, they could be processed there. And if deemed able to, they could come in and make an asylum claim. Others could be deemed ineligible and put into removal proceedings. This is to keep them from getting a foot onto the U.S. land at all, and it can be incredibly dangerous. And the U.S. government, the federal government, thinks that it will lead to more drownings.
You know, migration advocates also oppose the use of these buoys. What are some of the biggest concerns they've outlined?
In short, drowning. The Rio Grande is already so dangerous. We see over 200 drownings of migrants a year, sometimes over 300 if the numbers at the border are going up. Oftentimes, I've been there, the water looks very still on top, but there's a very fierce undercurrent below. And so this is putting yet another barrier in place. Migrants might be able to think they can get over these buoys, and instead they're stuck. Also, I saw the Texas DPS even considered going a step further by putting some kind of netting or wire underwater, and instead they went with these buoys as kind of a safer alternative. But it's clear from immigration advocates and also the federal government that they're worried this could really put a lot more lives at risk.
So Governor Abbott has until 2 o'clock today to commit to removing the buoys, but it seems like he has no intention to do that. In a tweet posted this weekend, Abbott said Texas has the sovereign authority to defend our border under the U.S. Constitution and the Texas Constitution. So what happens next? How is this likely to play out?
Yeah, it does look like Abbott wants the fight. He wants to show, particularly against a Democrat administration, that he's the one who, you know, has the chops to come out and really enforce immigration law when Biden won't. But I've got to just add some numbers to that, Joe, which show that the Border Patrol has stopped about 850,000 migrants in this area over the same period, where the Texas border troopers that Governor Abbott sent down there apprehended about 11,000. So, I mean, it's really a drop in the bucket. They're spending a ton of money on this. They're getting a lot of national attention. But whether or not they're really having an impact on overall migration, it seems like they're really not. So it looks like it's a political fight he wants to have. But we should remember they're actually not doing a lot to really stem the flow of migration, numbers-wise.
Julia, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Let's bring in Kate Lincoln Goldfinch to break this down further. She is an attorney, an immigration attorney based in Texas. Kate, good morning. Thank you so much for being with us. So Governor Abbott's border initiative, what he calls Operation Lone Star, it has faced legal challenges since it launched back in 2021. But the latest legal challenge feels a bit different, particularly because allegations of inhumane treatment have now come from a Texas DPS officer involved in its implementation. Explain to us how today's legal challenges might be a bit different than some of the ones we've seen in the past, say back when the Department of Justice investigated alleged civil rights violations in July of 2022.
Sure. It's pretty rare to see the DOJ step in the way that they are right now. We've seen Greg Abbott do things like busing migrants to other states and launching Operation Lone Star, which, as the previous guest said, has been a drop in the bucket at most in terms of border enforcement, and yet has spent over $10 billion of Texan taxpayer money. But the DOJ stepping in and loudly announcing that they intend to sue the state of Texas is a departure from the norm norm. And I think that is a response to how egregious these violations are on all levels, on the legal level, because it's not within the state jurisdiction to enforce, on the humanitarian level, because these are drowning devices, and on the environmental level. This will have a massive impact on the environment, and that's why Mexico is stepping in as well. This is just a step further than we've seen, and it is really egregious.
You mentioned Mexican officials stepping in. They are pushing back against this buoy border, if you will. How much can they be involved here? I mean, in terms of the water area, Julia Ainsley was reporting how the goal of these buoys is to keep migrants from ever stepping foot on U.S. land. Who controls that water area?
Well, both countries do, and there are international treaties laying out how that will function. And of course, when there is an international treaty between two nations, it is the governments of those nations that will decide what occurs, not one single state within one of those nations. And that is why the government of Mexico, the Secretary of Foreign Relations, has said, wait a minute, this violates our international treaties, and it's going to cause flooding, or not going to cause flooding. When there is flooding, it will cause issues for the government of Mexico. So we're seeing both governments, the U.S. and the Mexican government, step in and say to Abbott, you've stepped beyond a line. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is that Abbott is responding by saying, okay, we'll take it to court. And at the end of the day, there's one person who is benefiting from all of this attention, and it is Greg Abbott himself.
All right, Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
We have much more ahead here on Morning News Now. New this morning, bye-bye birdie. Elon Musk just unveiled Twitter's brand new look. We're going to tell you about the social media makeover later this hour.
First, though, after the break, tensions rising in Israel. The key vote today amid the country's controversial judicial overhaul. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Israel's parliament is expected to hold a final vote today on a controversial bill that could weaken the country's Supreme Court.
Yeah, the change is part of a broader judicial overhaul by the far-right government. It has sparked months of protest and triggered a massive political crisis. NBC News foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Jerusalem with more on this. Raf, you can see some activity behind you. What are the protests like today?
Well, Ellison, good morning. Yeah, as you can see, thousands of protesters have gathered here in front of Israel's parliament. They are braving the scorching summer heat in what is really a last-ditch effort to try to stop this legislation going through. Protesters were gathered here in Jerusalem all weekend. Some of them marched from Tel Aviv, a march of 4 days. And this is a culmination of a 7-month protest that is unlike anything Israel has ever seen in its history. But the scale of the opposition isn't measured just in the number of people here on the street. Major businesses have also closed their doors today in protest at this legislation, and thousands of Israeli military reservists have said they will not show up for duty if this bill goes through, because they signed up to serve in the military of a democracy, and they worry this country may no longer be a democracy if this legislation passes. Guys.
So, Raf, help us understand what exactly this bill would mean for the Supreme Court there. And right now, is it expected to pass?
Yeah, Joe, so it's a little bit technical, but the bill that is right this moment working its way through the Israeli parliament is the first part of this much bigger judicial overhaul. And it basically says that the Supreme Court can no longer rule government actions unreasonable. Now, just to give you an example of this, earlier this year, the Supreme Court said it was unreasonable when Prime Minister Netanyahu tried to appoint a man with a series of tax fraud convictions to a senior position in the Israeli cabinet. Netanyahu says it is not for the unelected judges of the Supreme Court to hold back the elected government of Israel. He says that power needs to be stripped back. Right now, it looks like Netanyahu and his right-wing and religious allies inside of the parliament have the votes. There is still some talk that there could be a last-minute compromise, but if no deal emerges, Netanyahu says he has the votes to get this through. Guys.
Raf, we know Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was actually discharged from the hospital this morning after he had a pacemaker fitted. Is he going to be in Parliament for this vote?
Yeah, Alison, it's pretty dramatic. Netanyahu coming almost straight from the hospital to the parliament chamber behind me. He is there. He is with both his allies and his opponents as this voting begins. Like I said, there is some talk. Maybe Israel's president, who's a largely ceremonial figure, might be able to broker some kind of compromise, but Netanyahu is working the floor despite having that surgery over the weekend. It was his second trip to the hospital in a week. Netanyahu is 73 years old. He is generally thought to be in good health, but some questions about his health given those 2 hospital visits. Right now, he is determined to stay on the floor, and as far as we know, it looks like the final vote expected sometime around 11 a.m. Eastern. Guys.
Raph, thank you.
More international headlines now, starting with new developments in the war in Ukraine.
Megan Fitzgerald joins us now with that and a lot more. Good morning, Megan.
Guys, good morning to you. We start in Moscow, where 2 buildings were struck by drones this morning. Now, Russian authorities say that the drones were suppressed and didn't cause serious damage, but they're calling this a terrorist attack on the Kyiv regime. Meanwhile, Russian missiles severely damaged a historic Orthodox cathedral in Ukraine's port city of Odessa, just the latest attack since last Monday when Russian President Vladimir Putin pulled out of the grain deal, which allowed exports of millions of tons of grain to be distributed all around the world. And guys, an update on the U.S. soldier who bolted across the demilitarized zone into North Korea. The UN command and North Korea have started discussions around Travis King. A deputy commander said their focus is Private King's welfare, but he wasn't able to comment more about the highly sensitive situation. Now, keep in mind, of course, this comes at a time of heightened tensions between the United States and North Korea. And look, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but arguably the most exciting and tense Tour de France that we have seen in nearly a decade. It ended with Denmark's Jonas Vingegaard on top. It was a 2-man battle practically the entire way between Vingegaard and Tadej Pogačar until the 17th stage. That's when Pogačar radioed to his team, "I'm gone, I'm done." It was astonishing for a guy who won 2 back-to-back Tour de France's in 2020 and 2021. Nevertheless, the 26-year-old from Denmark breezed through the finish line in Paris. Did he reach for water? Of course he didn't. He's in Paris. He reached for some champagne, right? That's what you do. And then he celebrated.
I'm sure there are some hydration benefits to champagne after a long, grueling race, right? All right.
Must help. If it's French, it has to help.
All right. Thanks, Megan. Appreciate it.
Staying with sports and turning now to the World Cup, I was glued to the TV. Team USA's women, they got their tournament off to a winning start on Friday.
2 goals from Sophia Smith helped the team secure a 3-0 victory over Vietnam. NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter joins us now from Auckland, New Zealand with more on that. Molly, a good start for Team USA thanks in part to a great performance by Smith, right?
Yeah, guys, good morning. A good start, a great performance by 22-year-old Sophia Smith, but not exactly the kind of absolutely splashy start the U.S. team was hoping. I'm sure, though, I could ask them, though, about the hydration benefits of champagne. I just overheard Megan say it with you guys. I did get a chance to talk to the superstar, Sophia Smith, just after she came off the field. Take a quick listen. I'll talk to you on the back end.
It felt really good. It was exciting to get out there. It's been a long build-up to this moment, so it felt really good to finally just get out there and play.
And you absolutely crushed it. Looking ahead to the Netherlands, what's going through your head?
Excitement. I'm happy with our performance, but I know we have so much more, and we can find a few things going into this next game. So honestly, just excited.
Guys, she was so smiley, she was so enthusiastic, and just really excited. Of course, that was her first ever World Cup match. She's one of 14 U.S. players making their debuts in the World Cup, and she looked very comfortable on the world's biggest soccer stage. Guys?
So, Molly, I have been living vicariously through your social media post as well as producer Susan Archer's. I have to say they started a wave in one game, so I was highly impressed. I understand you also spoke with Megan Rapinoe after the game, right? This is her last World Cup before she retires. What did she tell you?
That's exactly right, Allison. I got to say, she didn't start, which was a little bit of a surprise, but she came sprinting off the bench in the second half, and the entire stadium, look, we've been talking about this for the last couple of days with Joe. New Zealand is a rugby country. It is not a soccer fanatic country. That stadium, though, was absolutely packed, and you heard when Megan Rapinoe, of course, a world superstar, ran onto the stage, the entire stadium went nuts. I talked to her right after the game about just what that felt like. Take a listen.
I'm just excited, for different reasons, obviously, than, maybe someone being here for the first time, but just as excited. It's very special being able to play in a World Cup. It's very special knowing this will, be my last with this incredible team. I think we have an amazing team with great chance of going really far and hopefully winning the tournament. That's our goal. But just excited. I feel like a little kid out there.
And Allison and Joe, we actually spoke with several players who came off, including co-captains Alex Morgan and Lindsey Horan. And no one, I have to say, was surprised by Sophia Smith's performance. Everyone expects a lot from that 22-year-old forward throughout this tournament. I'll send it back to you.
So, Molly, remind us what's next now for Team USA.
Right. So we're in Auckland right now, guys, Team USA, and we actually went to a training earlier today. They have training here in Auckland for the next couple of days, but their next big match is Thursday local time here against the Netherlands. That is Wednesday night for you guys on the East Coast. The Netherlands is a really tough team. It will be much tougher than Vietnam, and the Netherlands, of course, was the team that the U.S. beat in 2019 to take home the World Cup title. So I think there's a lot of anticipation about that game. It is in Wellington, and we will be there.
All right. Molly Hunter in New Zealand. Thank you. Coming up, new developments in the January 6th investigation. What we are learning about Georgia's governor being contacted by special counsel Jack Smith as Donald Trump faces the possibility of new charges.
Plus, the White House working to regulate artificial intelligence. The new deal just made with some of the top tech companies. That's next on Morning News Now. This morning, new information is coming to light about special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into former President Trump and where it might be headed. A spokesperson for Georgia Governor Brian Kemp confirms that the governor was contacted as part of Smith's investigation into suspected interference in the outcome of the 2020 election. This comes nearly a week after Trump received a letter stating he was the target of the special counsel's investigation by a grand jury, which is looking into the events of January 6th, along with efforts to overturn the election. Trump has denied any wrongdoing. NBC News Justice reporter Ryan Riley joins us now with the very latest. Ryan, good morning to you. So we should point out that while Governor Kemp's office declined to give further comment about being contacted by the special counsel, what are we learning about any new developments in the investigation?
I think it indicates that this investigation is ongoing and is also sort of at a pivot point. I don't know if necessarily the indictment's going to hold off until all of these interviews really take place, because we really do seem to be coming to the point where we're at a decision point essentially here. The grand jury has heard obviously testimony from a wide variety of people, including the former Vice President Mike Pence. But on last week, we saw this key testimony from someone who has been now called before the grand jury about 3 times, an aide, William Russell, who's an aide to Donald Trump, who was asked questions specifically about Donald Trump's state of mind during that critical period between his 2020 election loss and January 6th. This is something that I think is really essential to this case overall, is finding out exactly what Donald Trump actually believed about these underlying conspiracy theories that a lot of people in his own team were telling him were sort of ludicrous and not going to change the outcome of the election there. So even if he didn't necessarily believe them, though, that's not going to stop an indictment from moving forward, because the key is that he can't be willfully ignorant of all of this information that was incoming to him. So even if he did actually believe that the election was stolen, that's not an excuse for some of these underlying crimes that the prosecutors are looking at charging him with.
Let's talk about Jack Smith's other investigation into Trump, his alleged mishandling of classified documents. We have seen indictments in that one. We learned late last week the trial is scheduled to begin next May. This date was somewhat of a compromise, right?
It was, yeah. The special counsel's team really wanted to move forward in December. And, a lot of these dates can shift very easily. And I think that that's what they were sort of counting on, is if they got it on the books for December, maybe it would have shifted to early in the next year. But now that it's in May, you're very much so getting smack dab in the middle of the presidential primary and even getting close to the general there, because by the time, if that trial were to go forward, by the time it wraps up, you're basically right on top of the Republican National Convention. So I think that this is a really complicated matter and a really unique circumstance that we haven't really seen before. But it also makes you recognize that in the January 6th case, I mean, it's going to be a long shot to even get that on the books before before the general election takes place, just given the calendar and how these things generally work out. Because that's about, the May date would be about roughly a year from when he was first indicted in that case. And if you just do the math on that one, you're right in the middle on the January 6th case. If you take that same track, you're right in the middle of the presidential campaign there.
Yeah, so help us understand the new timing for the trial. How does it impact Trump's other legal challenges, not to mention the fact that he's running for president?
Yeah, he's got a really full calendar. And I think one thing that's going to be interesting is to see how judges factor in all of these other matters, including all of these campaigns that he's going to have to be running in various primary states. Is that something that's going to justify a delay? Because, normally when you have individuals who have you have to work around their work schedule to a certain extent. That's not always the case. Obviously people, when they go to trial, are not being able to have to, take off of work and that sort of thing. But these are pretty immovable objects, and generally they'll work around someone's schedule for certain things. But this is, just a really unique circumstance, especially given all these various ongoing pieces of litigation that he has sort of been juggling.
Unlike anything we've ever seen. All right, Ryan, thank you so much.
Out of the White House, where the Biden administration has announced that 7 leading companies in the world of artificial intelligence have agreed to work together to develop safety guidelines. The White House says it is a step towards more meaningful regulation of the booming tech industry. Before meeting with tech executives on Friday, President Biden called the voluntary agreement a commitment to develop safe and secure and trustworthy technologies.
These commitments, which the companies will implement immediately, underscore 3 fundamental principles: safety, security, and trust. First, the companies have an obligation to make sure their technology is safe before releasing it to the public.
Let's now bring in NBC News cybersecurity reporter Kevin Collier for more on this. Kevin, good morning to you. Break this agreement down for us. Who is in it? What does it entail? We mentioned this deal is voluntary. Should people trust these companies to actually stick with the promises they've made?
Well, maybe a little, but it's 7 of the biggest AI companies in the United States. OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT. Other tech giants are making AI pivot part of their future business, like Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft. It's just the first step on what we might hope is a very long road toward companies that are developing AI, promising to do so responsibly. But that's it. Promising to test stuff out internally before they make it available to the public, watermarking AI generated content so the public knows what they're dealing with before they, so they know whether the content they see is made by machines or made by humans. And sharing what they know with each other, governments, researchers, rather than all these companies staying in silos.
Kevin, in some of your new reporting, you actually spoke with a critic of AI. They said the commitments are important, but they don't compel AI companies to say what data they're using to train their models. Why is that important?
I'll give you 2 reasons. The first is that every generative AI program, we've all used ChatGPT or the various programs that make images or videos. They're all products of the information that the AI companies feed into it. If you were to train ChatGPT purely on Wikipedia, you'll get one kind of answer when you ask it questions. If you train it entirely on 4chan, you'll get something, let's say, probably a little bit more vulgar, more discriminatory, and customers should know what they're getting into. The other reason is there's a surging movement right now for some of the very many people whose work was secretly used to train these AI tools, authors, journalists, artists, and they're demanding to be compensated. Hey, you used my copyrighted book to create your tech product without my knowledge or permission. Where's my cut?
Kevin, the president said that he expects these companies to implement these new regulations, new rules, guidelines, whatever you want to call them, immediately. Give us a realistic timeline. Is that going to be hard for them?
They're refusing to give a timeline, notably, so maybe months, but we don't know. They want to take their time. A lot of these companies have been doing the move fast and break stuff thing. They've been racing to develop the technology, trying to be competitors, trying to beat China without taking a lot of care to make sure they're doing so safely. But like you said, it's important to note that these are very voluntary guidelines. The executive order is coming, but we don't know when that is.
All right, Kevin, thank you.
Coming up, birds, not the word. New this morning, Twitter is ditching its signature blue bird. The brand new look just unveiled by Elon Musk.
And bad for the brand. Social media influencers facing a unique challenge when it comes to their regular 9 to 5. We'll explain next. This is Morning News Now. We're back with financial headlines. Elon Musk, he is replacing Twitter's iconic Bluebird logo.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other money news. Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Joe. Hey, listen, good morning to you. Yeah, so X will soon mark the spot where Twitter's bird logo used to be. Elon Musk announcing the social media platform will retire the famous bird logo as part of his moves to overhaul the brand. He's pitching using X, which is his letter of choice across his business empire. The banking startup he co-founded in 1999 was called X.com, and that would eventually become PayPal. And his new AI venture is called XAI. Musk has also talked about how X would help Twitter become an everything app or a home for social networking, messaging, video, and payments. Trucking company Yellow has averted a threatened strike by 22,000 union workers. The Teamsters says the company will pay the more than $50 million it owes in worker benefit and pension payments. Yellow is the nation's third biggest trucker, specializing in the so-called less than truckload segment, which combines shipments from different customers in the same trailer. Its customers include retailers like Walmart and Home Depot, manufacturers, and Uber Freight. Apple is using an internal chatbot, which Bloomberg reports will help employees test out future features, summarize texts, and answer questions based on data it's been trained with. Apple has reportedly been developing an AI rival to ChatGPT, but the company isn't sure whether to make it for public use yet. The company is exploring ways to expand the use of generative AI internally. One possibility would be to give the tool to its Apple Care support staff to better help customers deal with tech issues, guys. That sounds like a good idea. If the tech bar can get more help, please.
Yeah. AI, please help us out here.
Please.
Silvana, thank you so much.
You got it.
So with the influencer market worth billions, the most successful social media influencers are often able to live off of what was once a hobby. But what happens when your online brand conflicts with your offline job? NBC News Now anchor Zinkley Esawa has that story.
I submitted a letter of my immediate resignation from the law firm that I was employed at.
This is Annie Papula. She's one of many influencers today who say their online presence has conflicted with their full-time work.
Hello, beautiful people. Get ready with me. Every Sunday after church with my family, I would have one of my brothers take my photo and post it on Instagram once a week.
That's how Any Given Sunday was born. Papula, a first-generation Nigerian American, grew her following documenting her outfits and experience graduating from Harvard, Columbia Law, and soon after passing the New York bar exam.
What did that feel like? Such a huge moment of relief. For me, it was really just like, okay, like I can still keep creating content and not have resentment for that because I passed. You were able to do both. Yes.
She says she secured a job as a law clerk at a New York corporate firm, all while doing sponsored content for major beauty brands on the weekends.
I didn't really internalize that social media influencing was a form of work. Let's get ready for a holiday party.
But according to the law firm, it was.
I had a meeting and learned that essentially by partnering with brands, like I was moonlighting.
Papula faced a choice. Her brand of over 170,000 followers on Instagram and over 10 million likes on TikTok, or her job.
I was told that I simply cannot do both. I posted that video honestly fearful that my followers, the people who would watch me go through this journey, would leave.
Annie's decision to resign sparking discourse online about moonlighting policies, which prohibit employees from earning money through jobs outside their full-time work.
The main reason companies have moonlighting policies is because that employee in his side hustle might be working a job that would conflict with his primary employer's mission.
We reached out to Papula's former firm for comment and did not hear back. Influencer marketing expert Nina Zeta says companies should change their approach for the modern workplace.
We have a community of over 140,000 creators, so a big chunk of those have full-time jobs. If these companies are really trying to retain talent implementing these policies could ultimately hurt them.
In fact, according to an Adobe poll, as of 2022, 6 out of 10 creators also hold full-time jobs.
My entire life, I've always been involved in multiple pursuits. I think it becomes very difficult then to make the transition to making one job your entire life.
Is it possible to do both, to have a vibrant social media presence and a job that you've worked hard for?
I think it is possible. I really do think it's possible. I think you have to find the people who love it.
It's the beauty and the brand.
Yes.
Our thanks to Zinkley Asimov for that story. Annie says that despite the setback, she has no regrets about her decision to resign. She tells us that now she makes about 6 figures a year as a full-time influencer.
Coming up, it is the box office pairing we did not know we needed.
That's right. We are talking, of course, about Barbenheimer, Barbie and Oppenheimer. Both movies making a big splash this past weekend. More on the record-breaking opening when we come back. You are watching Morning News Now. So Cher is getting into gelato and calling it, of course, Cher Lotto. The music icon announced the launch of her new brand over the weekend, posting a video of a truck covered in Cher-filled cones. Her big announcement is already sparking a few creative replies, with fans changing song titles to If I Could Turn Back Time and the Scoop Scoop song. If I Could Turn Back Lime. So many possibilities.
I mean, the branding alone, like, I'm on board with that.
Who does not want Cher gelato?
I will wait in line for it.
Exactly.
I'm sold.
Exactly. All right. The much-anticipated Barbenheimer dual movie weekend, it finally arrived, and no surprise, it was a box office blowout. Together, the two films did not disappoint, raking in a staggering $235 million domestically.
Man, whether you opted for the pink paradise of Barbie or for the historic nail-biter Oppenheimer, or if you went big and checked out both movies for a total of 4 hours and 54 minutes, moviegoers made their voices heard this weekend. Chris Murphy is a staff writer at Vanity Fair. He joins us now. Chris, let's get straight to it. Barbenheimer, Joe mentioned the numbers, did really well. Did it exceed or meet expectations?
Oh, it totally exceeded expectations. Barbenheimer blew up the box office. It initially was expected to make anywhere from $260 million at the global box office, and it made $511 million worldwide. $235.5 million of that earned domestically, with Barbie raking in $155 million domestically, and Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer raking in $80.5 million domestic, which is really just sort of mind-boggling that so many people are going back to the movie theater. It's something we haven't seen really in such a long time. Which is such a relief to studios everywhere. So let's focus in on Barbie, as that graphic showed us there. It outgrossed Oppenheimer by nearly $75 million. Not a surprise. That was expected to be the bigger movie. Its director, Greta Gerwig, she made box office history. Tell us about that. Yeah, Barbie was the largest opening for a female director of all time, and the largest opening of a movie to date this year, beating out Super Mario Brothers, which made $146 million at the box office. But yeah, Greta Gerwig, as a female director, has made history. It's rare for female directors to even have an opportunity to sort of make these tentpole blockbuster films. And now with Gerwig's Barbie, she proves that not only can women, make these films, but they can rake in money and do them on a really big global scale and also really well artistically.
Chris, given that these numbers for opening weekend were so big, and we're seeing numbers that we haven't seen since before the pandemic, what does that tell us about the state of movies in Hollywood at this moment? Is this a potential turning point for the industry?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a really precarious moment in the industry with these dual strikes. The WGA is on strike, SAG is on strike. Hollywood is sort of at this sort of precipice as to, what's going to happen with streaming. And are people really ever going to come back to the movies in the way that they used to in the 80s and 90s? So Barbenheimer, with both of these films that are so wildly different, so aesthetically different, with two totally different target audiences, with both of them coming out the same weekend and the competition sort of ginning up and helping both films exceed expectations, it really shows a positive sign for the potential of movie-going and cinema-going and what's to come for Hollywood.
Chris, real quickly, to get big box office numbers like this, you need blockbusters. Are there any blockbusters coming in the next few weeks here that we know of?
Well, in the next few weeks, everything's getting sort of pushed back and everything's up in the air given the SAG strike. So things are getting rescheduled and sort of pushed because people don't want to open movies without stars on the red carpet, because that helps to raise the box office. And we saw that with Barbie and we saw that with Oppenheimer, with both of those films got, the full rollout before the strike. So we'll see. I think right now Barbie and Oppenheimer are going to be sort of the big movies for the rest of the summer.
Chris Murphy, thank you so much.
It's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now. Good morning. I'm Ellison Barber in for Savannah Sellers.
And I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, cruel summer. More than 50 new record high temperatures set just this weekend. And millions of Americans are again waking up under heat alerts. Those dangerous temperatures straining some hospitals. And a new warning this morning as this dangerous heat is set to expand to other parts of the country. We have team coverage. Also this morning, border battle, a Texas showdown along the southern border. All over this 1,000-foot-long floating buoy wall was installed to keep migrants from crossing the border. Now the Department of Justice is giving the state until this afternoon to remove it, setting the stage for a major legal battle as the clock ticks down. Plus, split screen this morning as former President Trump faces another possible federal indictment. His popularity among Republican voters remains strong. We're digging into the new polling ahead of a potential collision of the legal and political calendars. And dawn of the early bird. In the city that never sleeps, more people are dining out early, even going to bed early, and that's becoming a national trend. From saving money to health benefits, we're looking into the shift and why some say the early bird may not only catch the worm, but also a great seat at a trendy restaurant. A lot of folks dining out at 5 p.m. I like that because I go to bed early.
Yeah, I mean, it ebbs and flows for me, but I love if I can be in bed by 8. I would love an 8:30, 9:30 night. It's good all the time.
Exactly. See, we're not alone now. We'll dig into that in a little bit. First this morning, that extreme heat we've been experiencing, it's expanding with dangerous temperatures expected to move into the Midwest and the Northeast later this week.
It is more unwelcome news as a large portion of the country is already suffering through the weeks-long heat wave. We're starting the week off with 28 million Americans under heat alerts. And over the weekend, cities like Houston, Phoenix, and Miami, they all saw heat records obliterated. And more record temperatures could soon be reached in multiple locations across the plains and in the Southwest. We're covering all angles of this dangerous heat this morning. We begin with NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer. He joins us now from Phoenix. Good morning, Miguel. Phoenix, they are used to heat, but not like this.
Yeah, that's right, Allison. It's tough to describe just how stifling this heat is. Here in the Phoenix area right now, it's 90 degrees. That's actually the overnight low. The temperature will rise about 20 degrees over the next couple of hours in what is no doubt going to be another dangerous and potentially deadly day.
This morning, a deadly and relentless heat wave.
If it's going to get hotter, I don't know how we're going to make it.
Over the weekend, the blistering heat setting more than 50 new high-temperature records.
Yeah, disgusting.
We're dripping with sweat.
30 million people across 11 states remain under heat alerts. And as it intensifies, so does the threat of heat-related emergencies. In the Bell Canyon area of Los Angeles, a dramatic rescue captured on the Citizen app. Firefighters airlifting 2 female hikers overcome by heat. While at a Nevada state park where temperatures topped 114 degrees, 2 women found dead after their worried hiking group called police. The sweltering summer also bringing a dangerous heat wave to Europe. In Greece, wildfires forcing thousands of tourists to evacuate from the popular islands. NBC's Josh Letterman is there.
Here in Rhodes, firefighters on land and in the air struggling to contain this fire that has already destroyed villages. 19,000 people already evacuated, while on the island of Corfu, a new fire raging this morning.
Back in the U.S., temperatures continue to rise.
We're still far above our average for this date of 106.
Phoenix saw its record 24th day in a row with highs above 110 degrees. while in sweltering Miami, the heat index has topped triple digits for 43 straight days.
I'm from Miami, born and raised, and I'm still not used to this.
A summer heat wave for the record books that simply refuses to break.
The heat here in the Southwest isn't going to relent anytime soon. As a matter of fact, first responders all across this region have been taxed. In the Phoenix area this summer, they've been dealing with about 20 heat-related deaths, a dangerous number that continues to rise as we push deeper into summer. Ellison?
Miguel Almaguer, thank you so much. Let's head over to Michelle Grossman. She has the latest on how the weather could impact your week. Michelle, what are you seeing?
Hi there. Well, we're seeing more of the same, more dangerous heat, more record-breaking heat. We are breaking records daily, monthly, and all-time records, and we're going to continue to do that. It looks like the August outlook looks very warm as well. So as we take a little peek at the week ahead, starting with today, still hot in the south. We're looking at temperatures well into the triple digits, but the difference is we're looking at this heat dome expanding. So now we're talking about the Rockies, the Intermountain West, into the northern plains, the Midwest, and then eventually into the Northeast. And we're also looking at the chance for spotty showers today. That's a combination of a couple cold fronts moving through, along with the heat and humidity. And we could see some really heavy downpours with any of these spotty showers. That extends from New England into the Northeast. Also, portions of the Southeast, the Central Plains, and the Ohio Valley could see some strong storms as well. Now, Wednesday, we're going to be muggy. We're going to be hot along the East Coast. So now we're talking 90s for D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and Northern Plains really hot too. The Central and Southern Plains into the triple digits. And we're looking at triple digits once again from the southern, the West, Southwest, and then also 90s into the Intermountain West. Record highs continuing to be broken on Wednesday. By Friday, more record highs could come down in the Northeast. We're going to see temperatures into the 90s. You factor in the humidity. By Friday, it's going to feel like near 100 degrees in New York City. We're also tracking the chance for some showers in New England, parts of the Northeast. The state of Florida, you're going to be wet too on Friday. Warm to 96 degrees in Tampa, toasty in the middle of the country, and sunny and seasonable in the Pacific Northwest. So as far as the heat goes, we're looking at 30 million people impacted still. It is intense, and this is long. So we're looking at Salt Lake City, Phoenix, Miami under excessive heat warnings, where we will see temperatures into the triple digits for Salt Lake City, into the triple digits for Phoenix and Miami. Even though you're not going to make it to the triple digits, you factor in the humidity, it will feel like over 100 degrees. Record heat once again today, extending into the Great Basin, the Northern Plains. Great Falls today, 100 degrees. The record there is 102, so we're going to get close to that. We'll watch that closely. Denver near 100 degrees, triple digits for Phoenix, 115, 103 in Abilene, and then warm in Sanford, Florida, also Miami. We're into the mid-90s. Same story tomorrow. We're going to keep that heat dome in place. It still expands, so the Great Lakes, you're going to be really warm too. We're looking at 112 in Tucson, Denver near 100 degrees tomorrow, 95 in New Orleans. And then look what happens as we go throughout the mid part of the week into the late part of the week. New York City, 95 degrees. You factor in the humidity, it's going to feel like near 100 degrees. Dallas, 103, Thursday, 100, and by Friday, we're 99 degrees. And then this is tough to show because we're looking at our August outlook, and it's warmer than average for a lot of the country. The West will still be baking, sizzling still in the South, the Southeast, and it looks like the East Coast is going to be above average as well. That's the heat story. Now we're talking about the storms, summer storms. Some could be strong. We're looking at winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. Could see some hail, even a tornado or two, and really heavy downpours. Remember, warming atmosphere holds more water. Any of these storms could unleash a lot of water, and that could lead to some flooding. That's today. Tomorrow, we're going to see that front kind of meandering off the coast, and then we're going to see isolated pockets of some really heavy rainfall. This is where we're expecting the likelihood for some storms from the Midwest into portions of the Ohio Valley, Minneapolis, Des Moines, Kansas City, into Cincinnati, and also the Northeast into the Appalachians. So Charlottesville, Harrisburg, Albany, Burlington could see some pretty strong storms and some heavy downpours too. We could see up to 2 inches of rain locally in some spots. And all up and down the East Coast, we're going to have a nearly stationary boundary. That's going to be the focus for some scattered showers and storms. It's not going to be an all-out washout for all of us, but we still have to keep in mind that we need the umbrella. We need to keep our eye to the sky as some storms will develop. Also watching the tropics, Ellison, we're looking at Tropical Storm Dawn, expecting that to weaken. It should become post-tropical pretty soon, and then a little disturbance near the Windward Islands. Back to you.
All right, Michelle Grossman, thank you for that. Warmer than average rain. The city of Miami, it was in that warmer than average rain. That's where we head to next. You're probably thinking, Miami, they are so used to heat. They're able to deal with all of this oppressive heat. And they are, but it's also because of something you might not know. So 2 years ago, the city of Miami actually created a position called Chief Heat Officer. It was a first of its kind role to try and help the city tackle extreme temperatures. Jane Gilbert, Miami-Dade County Chief Heat Officer, joins us now. Jane, good morning to you. Thank you so much for being with us. Talk to us about your job. I mean, you were named the world's first Chief Heat Officer 2 years ago. A lot of cities are probably looking at Miami now thinking maybe we should have thought of something like this as well. Why did Miami decide to create this?
Good morning. Great. Thank you. Our mayor, Danielle Levine Cava, heard both from our local residents, particularly our lower income, more vulnerable residents, that extreme heat was their top concern related to climate change. Even though we're the tip of the spear of risk for sea level rise and hurricanes, it was extreme heat that they were feeling at work, on their way to work, at home, with the utility costs going up or not being able to afford a repair on their air conditioner. And so she heard that, and she also partnered with the Arstrock Resilience Center that's looking at extreme heat globally, and together created the idea of this position to address the increasing health and economic risks of extreme heat.
So when you look at the forecast, y'all currently are in the 44th consecutive day with a heat index above 100 degrees. What is your top priority right now as you expect, I imagine, to continue dealing with this heat for a while?
It's to make sure everyone is informed and prepared and protected. So, one, we have over 300,000 outdoor workers. At a day like today, which is a heat warning, our heat index can be over 110 degrees. We want to make sure employers understand that they really actually can't be working in that level of heat at the height of the day, that they need to think about the work schedules, make sure that when they do have to, if it's an essential job, they have to be out there, that they're hydrated, that they take breaks in a cool spot. That can improve performance and protect their health, and not only from heat-related illnesses, but from injuries on the job, from heart attacks. So outdoor workers are those that are having a hard time staying cool at home. We want to make sure they have access to cooling sites throughout the county that are through our disaster volunteer trainings. People help them get there. Same with our unsheltered population. It's the people who are most exposed, either at home, at work, in transportation, that we need to be most concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. A lot of us can forget that being able to stay inside when it is hot, having access to air conditioning, that's a privilege that not everyone has. When we're seeing so many cities deal with this excessive extreme heat, do you think we could see more cities doing what Miami has done, what Phoenix has now done, Los Angeles, and creating more roles of chief heat officers like you have?
Absolutely. Well, I've had a number of calls from different cities exploring the idea of the position. And regardless, cities are going to need to have plans to address with extreme heat, whether they do that in the form of a chief heat officer or not. They need to look at strategies for informing, preparing, and protecting people, for helping people stay cool at home, and for cooling our neighborhoods through tree planting, cool pavements, cool roofs. All of those things are going to be required of cities.
All right, Jane Gilbert, thank you so much. We appreciate it. A legal showdown is looming this morning along the Texas border. Texas Governor Greg Abbott could be facing a lawsuit from the DOJ over his construction of a floating border wall in the Rio Grande River. The Justice Department has given Abbott until 2 p.m. today to commit to removing the barrier from the water. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson joins us now from Eagle Pass, Texas, with more on this. Priscilla, you've been reporting on this extensively in recent weeks. What's the latest?
Yeah, Ellison, well, good morning from Eagle Pass, where for now the buoys remain in the water behind me. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has said that the state has the authority to defend its border, but the DOJ is calling this buoy inhumane and illegal, setting the stage for a legal battle that will likely play out in court. Today, the Justice Department is poised to sue the state of Texas unless the state's Republican Governor Greg Abbott removes this 1,000-foot-long buoy barrier recently installed on the Rio Grande. intended to prevent migrants from crossing the treacherous river from Mexico into Eagle Pass, Texas. In a letter sent to Abbott Thursday, the DOJ wrote the state did not obtain proper authorization for the buoys, saying they violate federal law, raise humanitarian concerns, and present serious risks to public safety and the environment. Abbott on Twitter writes, Texas has the sovereign authority to defend our border, echoed by his fellow Republicans.
I think you're seeing the governor do everything he possibly can to secure the border.
The Biden administration says illegal border crossings have declined significantly since May, when pandemic-era immigration restrictions expired. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, total encounters with migrants on this border in June were the lowest in over 2 years. Legal experts say the state may face an uphill battle if the federal government files suit.
If these buoys are covered under the Rivers and Harbors Act, then the federal government has a strong argument that unless the state of Texas has authorization, it must remove these objects.
The buoys are roughly 4 feet in diameter and spin if someone tries to climb over them. They extend at least a foot underwater, with no netting beneath them for now, officials say.
Brought across.
Lieutenant Christopher Olivares showed us the buoys as they were being installed.
We want to prevent people from going to a particular area or dangerous part of the river and prevent them from crossing the river. And it will discourage and hopefully deter some of those unlawful crossings that are taking place and prevent the loss of life.
On the Mexican side of the border, this Venezuelan man says the floating barrier puts migrants at risk. While this activist says it won't stop migration, but it will create more deaths. And beyond the floating barrier, Governor Abbott has also deployed other measures as part of his multi-billion-dollar border protection plan, including putting razor wire all along the river's embankment. And the DOJ is also looking into claims made by a state trooper that they were directed to push migrants, including children, back into the river and also to deny them water despite the blistering temperatures here. So certainly disturbing allegations that the state denies. Ellison?
Priscilla Thompson in Eagle Pass, Texas. Thank you so much. In Washington this morning, all eyes are on special counsel Jack Smith, who may be moving closer to indicting former President Donald Trump for his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. It's a topic that has consumed the political world and the race for the Republican nomination, with new polling showing Mr. Trump still holds a big lead nationally and in key states. NBC's Garrett Haake has the latest for us. Garrett, good morning.
Hey, Ellison, good morning. Yeah, look, more than a week's passed now since special counsel Jack Smith sent Mr. Trump that formal warning that he may soon face federal criminal charges again. But even as the former president's legal challenges keep growing, so too does his lead over the Republican presidential field. As the investigation into Donald Trump intensifies this week, the former president firing away on social media at the prosecutors who may soon indict him on a second round of federal charges as they look into efforts to overturn the 2020 election.
Getting indicted and arrested by sick government thugs would be my great honor.
Mr. Trump calling prosecutors campaign managers for President Biden, while accusing them of trying to, quote, steal another election, even as their investigation continues. A grand jury in the nation's capital hearing evidence from former Trump White House aide Will Russell last week about the former president's state of mind around the election, according to a source familiar with his testimony. The potential charges against the former president have become a topic of debate among his primary opponents.
The president lied to them and told them the election was stolen.
I'd rather that these issues and the judgment about his conduct on January 6th be left to the American people in the upcoming primaries.
While Mr. Trump is the current frontrunner, his legal calendar appears set to collide with the 2024 political calendar. A federal judge in Florida on Friday set a mid-May start date for Mr. Trump's trial on charges he mishandled classified documents and obstructed the government's efforts to retrieve them. That will follow a March start date for the New York trial on charges related to alleged hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. Mr. Trump has pleaded not guilty in both cases. So the question on the minds of just about everyone in D.C. is when will we know more about possible charges from the special counsel? Unfortunately, it's more or less impossible to say. But the grand jury hearing evidence in this investigation is expected to reconvene tomorrow. Ellison?
Garrett Haake, thank you so much. Turning now to Ohio, where newly released body camera footage from the Ohio State Police Department shows the moment an officer released a dog on an unarmed black man. Authorities say the attack was the end result of a near 30-minute chase. Officials are now investigating why the use of a dog was necessary. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch is in Circleville, Ohio, with more on this alarming video. Jesse, advocates are not the only ones asking why this police dog was released. A fellow police officer said don't do it in the moment as well, right?
Yeah, Ellison, that was a state trooper giving a warning to local police, an important distinction. These were different agencies. We're trying to get some answers as well. We've made repeated requests for comment to Circleville police here in this community outside of Columbus, Ohio. But so far, police here have not shared any details about that incident with NBC News. According to the Columbus Dispatch newspaper, police in this community say they are reviewing the conduct of their canine officer involved. But at this point, it's unclear if he is still on active duty after his conduct was captured on camera. Disturbing footage. We want to warn you, this video may be hard to watch.
Do not let them, don't release the dog.
In this newly released police body camera video, you can hear a state trooper repeatedly warning a local officer.
Do not release the dog with his hands up.
But despite Jadarius D. Rose appearing to surrender to authorities, the canine officer still unleashed the dog on the unarmed black man.
Get the dog off of him!
In this edited body cam video released by the Ohio State Highway Patrol, the 23-year-old cries out as officers move in. State police say the disturbing July 4th incident outside Columbus, Ohio, came after an attempted traffic stop, with Rose driving this semi-truck missing a left rear mud flap.
I'm sure what he dropped is.
Troopers chased Rose for nearly half an hour, repeatedly trying to deflate his tires before he finally pulled over and got out of the truck. According to officials, Rose called 911 himself before exiting the truck and raising his hands.
Come to me! You don't one bit! Come to me, man!
That's when state police say a local Circleville, Ohio officer, Ryan Speakman, deployed his canine, which ran toward authorities before Speakman appeared to command the dog to specifically attack Rose. One state trooper walks away with her hands to her face, while the state trooper who initially warned not to use the dog asks,
"Was that not loud enough?"
You said it 3-4 more times.
Police provided first aid to Rose, who was handcuffed.
Just let a dog bite me.
Authorities say Rose was treated at a local hospital and charged with failure to comply with order or signal of police officer. The Columbus NAACP's president says the video reminds her of dogs being unleashed on civil rights activists in the 1960s. And she believes this would not have happened if the driver was white.
That an officer would unleash a dog on a black man that had his hands in the air and was on his knees. We were mortified by that behavior.
The Columbus Dispatch quotes an area African American Heritage Association's leader as saying that trying, quote, to interject racial discord over this incident will not come from local citizens. Records show Rose is out of jail. He and his attorney have declined to comment to NBC News. We've also reached out to Officer Speakman, but we have not heard back. Ellison?
Jesse Kirsch, thank you so much. Coming up, it was a Barbenheimer bonanza at the box office this weekend, but which film took home the top prize? We're diving into the unlikely duo that's shattering records.
But first, new developments in the case of the American soldier who ran across the border into North Korea. What we've now learned about talks between the UN and the rogue nation. Next. We're back with new developments on the U.S. soldier who crossed over into North Korea last week. Discussions between the United Nations Command and North Korea are said to have started on that case. That's according to the deputy commander of the U.S.-led command that oversees the Korean war truce. NBC News foreign correspondent Matt Bradley joins us now from the South Korean capital of Seoul. So, Matt, what are we learning this morning about the case of Private Travis King?
Yeah, well, we just heard from this top United Nations general. He's actually a British general who's kind of running the command that mans the border, that same border that Private Private King darted across just last week. So, this is kind of a breakthrough because up until now, and it's been nearly a week since Private King shocked the world when he jumped across the North Korean border, we haven't really heard anything from North Korea. We haven't heard anything from Private King. And actually last week, U.S. officials came out and said that no one is even picking up the phone when they try to reach North Korea. But, we didn't get many details from this top UN general, but here's what he had to say.
The conversation has commenced with the KPA through the mechanisms of the armistice agreement. And I don't really want to speculate, or I don't really want to talk because of all the reasons I gave earlier about that process of communication. And none of us know where this is going to end. So I'm in life an optimist. I remain optimistic. But again, I'll leave that there.
So, as you heard, he remains optimistic. But the fact of the matter is that the young Private King is in a lot of trouble. I've been speaking with some North Korea experts, and they said that the North Koreans are probably going to want to hold on to him and use him, exploit him for their own propaganda value.
So, Matt, all this comes as tensions on the Korean Peninsula remain high. We understand North Korea fired more missiles over the weekend, and another U.S. nuclear-powered submarine arrived in South Korea today. What can you tell us about all these developments?
Yeah, we got to say, there's no good time to run across the border into North Korea, but Private King definitely chose one of the worst times in recent memory to really put himself in this situation between North Korea and the United States. The fact is, as you just mentioned, the U.S. has parked now 2 nuclear submarines, one nuclear capable or nuclear armed, the other nuclear powered here in South Korea. Now, that enraged the North Koreans, and they fired in the past week 2 missile launches into the sea. So this is a situation that is actually getting worse and worse because ever since Joe Biden came into office, we haven't had, or the United States hasn't had any real dialogue, official dialogue, with the North Koreans. So it's looking pretty grim for negotiations, and that's one of the reasons why it's so valuable and so important that the United Nations is using the terms of this armistice agreement back from 70 years ago to try to negotiate, because really, at this point, it looks like they're the only ones who are capable of reaching out to the North Koreans. Joe?
All right, Matt Bradley in Seoul. Matt, thank you so much.
Jury deliberations are underway in the sexual assault trial of actor Kevin Spacey. The 63-year-old is accused of sexually assaulting 4 men in London between 2001 and 2013.
Closing arguments took place last week, and this morning the jury heard the judge summing up the case. NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos joins us now to break down the trial as it comes to an end. So, Danny, we should point out Kevin Spacey originally faced 12 counts in this case. Last week, we found out 4 of the charges against him were dropped for what were called technical reasons. So because of this, the jury has been asked to concentrate on what happened rather than the dates. How hard is it to prove old charges when you can't allege specific dates?
This is why we have statutes of limitation. It is exactly this thing. At a certain point, when an event happens so far back that you don't even know the date, it becomes really difficult, not only for the prosecution to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, but I can tell you as a defense attorney, it is really hard to come up with alibis when the government is not even alleging a specific date. And if it goes back far enough, if you start getting back 15 years, 20 years, we're sort of in a pre-digital era. Yes, sure, we had email, we had cell phones, but not the way we do today, where data is just trailing us everywhere we go, where you can pinpoint everywhere we were over the last several months. That just isn't the case if you go far back enough. So it's a challenge both for the Crown and for the defense when they can't allege the specific dates.
So speaking of the Crown, the prosecution, and their closing arguments, they described Spacey in part like this, quote, they said he is a man who is used to getting his own way, used to being able to talk his way out of a situation. What's been their strategy throughout this trial, and in your view, has it been effective?
Well, the Crown has a challenge here. When you have a case that is built really only on complainant testimony, and a lot of that is based on the fact that, again, the allegations date back several years. When that happens, your case rises and falls on witness credibility. So, in addition, the Crown or the prosecution is using another time-worn strategy, especially with a celebrity, of saying this is someone who was a person of power, this is someone who abused his power, this is somebody who thought he could get away with it. Look, I mean, as a defense attorney, I've heard it before. It's effective. If I were to criticize it, I would say that just because someone is powerful doesn't mean that they are a criminal, but it appeals to working class folks who might be on that jury.
So as for Spacey's side, I mean, his lawyer is calling the accusers liars. What do you make of his defense overall?
Sure. I mean, that is the defense here. There really isn't an alternate theory the way you would, say, with a murder, come up with an alternate killer. There is no alternate theory. The defense here really can only do some version of the they are lying defense. I mean, that's really it. Other than coming up with a kind of alibi, and they did that in the form of, believe it or not, Sir Elton John trying to develop an alibi about where he was and was not on certain dates. So that was effective as well. But at its core, the defense's theory of the case is going to be those people are lying. And if you need a motive, it's also because this is a celebrity. You see that celebrity angle, it cuts both ways.
That Elton John moment got so much attention. Do you think that will have a big impact on a jury?
Yes. And let me tell you something. As a defense attorney, good luck trying to get influential people to come in and testify on behalf of a defendant. This is unbelievable to me that they were able to get Elton John to testify not only as a kind of alibi witness, but look, also as a character witness. The message is clear. If Sir Elton John endorses this defendant, if he thinks he's an okay guy, then you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, must think the same way. You can't say that explicitly, but that's the essence of character witnesses. And I got to tell you something. If you're an influential person, in all likelihood, I hate to tell you, Allison, if you're ever charged with a crime, your friend Joe will never appear as a character witness. His star is on the rise. He's got better things to do. I hate to tell you. That's the way it is.
I will be there for you. I will be there for you.
So he says.
Promise.
So he says.
She was here with me anchoring the show.
Right.
It was all good. Danny, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Danny. All right, international headlines now. Tragedy in China after the roof of a middle school gym collapsed.
NBC's Megan Fitzgerald joins us with that and more world news. Megan, good morning.
Guys, good morning. That's right. We start in China with that devastating news. As you mentioned, at least 11 people are killed after a gymnasium roof collapsed. Now, here's what we're learning so far. We know that the state media is reporting that it was being used by a girls' volleyball team, and eyewitnesses say the majority of those killed were children. We turn now to Nova Scotia. Folks there are seeing 3 months worth of rain in just one day over the weekend, triggering massive flooding, streets swallowed by water, forcing evacuations and a state of emergency. At least 4 people are missing, including 2 children. Authorities say the search for those kids and the 2 other people continue after their cars were swallowed by water. And the political drama in Spain continues this morning after no single party was able to win enough parliamentary seats in the national election over the weekend. Now, the center-right Popular Party did win the most votes, but they don't have enough seats to form a government. So in Spain, for background here, the prime minister wins by securing the most support from members of parliament. The current socialist prime minister still has a chance at victory, but guys, it is a tough road ahead. Back to you.
Interesting to watch all the different dynamics that play abroad. All right, Megan Fitzgerald, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Coming up, hell and back. Actor Jamie Foxx is opening up about the illness that left him hospitalized.
What the Oscar winner is saying about the medical emergency and returning to work. That's next. We're back with some good news this morning. A big update on the health of actor and musician Jamie Foxx, and it's coming straight from the Oscar winner himself.
Yeah, Foxx suffered an undisclosed medical emergency back in April. Now, for the very first time since his hospitalization, Foxx took to social media to thank his friends and fans for their support. NBC News correspondent Dana Griffin joins us now from Los Angeles with more on that update. Hey, Dana.
Hey, good morning, Ellison. While the star still has not revealed exactly what sent him to the hospital, he appears to be on the mend and ready to get back to work.
I went to hell and back.
Speaking publicly for the first time in 3 months after being hospitalized for a medical emergency, Jamie Foxx is back. At the time he fell ill, the 55-year-old Oscar-winning actor, singer, and comedian was filming a movie in Atlanta.
And I know a lot of people were waiting, or wanting to hear updates, but to be honest with you, I just didn't want you to see me like that, with tubes running out of me and trying to figure out if I was gonna make it through.
His sudden disappearance and unknown condition fueling rumors and wild speculation.
By being quiet, sometimes things get out of hand. People saying what I got. Some people said I was blind, but as you can see, the eyes are working.
The actor, at times, emotional.
And man, I know they talk about people crying on videos. You could do take two, but I'm not going to do a take two. It is what it is.
Praising his medical team and saying his sister and daughter are why he's still alive.
To be honest with you, my sister, Deidre Dixon, my daughter, Corinne Marie, saved my life.
Friends and colleagues celebrating his recovery. Viola Davis posting, "God is good." Kerry Washington said, "Love you guys so much." LL Cool J writing, "So glad to see you back, my brother."
If you could point me to the elevator that leads down to the...
Fox's Instagram video posted the same day his new movie, They Cloned Tyrone, dropped on Netflix.
It was good timing. I think it's another sign that Jamie Foxx is sharing what he wants to share about what's going on with him exactly when he wants to, and really not going on anybody else's timetable.
Some good news from a beloved star for fans eager to see him out of the hospital and back on camera.
And as you know, actors are still on strike as they negotiate their contracts with studios. So you won't see Fox back on set anytime soon. But 2 days before releasing that video, he posted a photo of himself at a Vegas hotel and wrote, "We got big things coming soon." So we'll be watching.
Dana Griffin, thank you so much. The Barbenheimer Dual Movie Event of the Year officially arrived this weekend in style. And whether you were Team Barbie or Team Oppenheimer, there was a little bit of something for everyone.
Yeah, the two movies took in a record-breaking $235 million domestically. NBC News contributing correspondent Kaylee Hartung has more.
Hey there. Yeah, just as some were worried about summer movie revenue, suddenly Hollywood has a pair of hits with this so-called Barbenheimer double feature, proving opposites really do attract, as the summer's biggest titles have fans rushing back to the movies.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
From the pink sands of Barbie Land to the isolated New Mexican desert.
The world will remember this day.
Audiences are flocking to the theaters.
Did you bring your rollerblades?
I literally go nowhere without them.
With Barbie boasting a record-setting $155 million domestically, and Oppenheimer blowing up with an $80 million debut on opening weekend, the two opening on the same weekend, causing a wave of online anticipation and double feature excitement.
Barbie. Icon, timeless icon.
We're big Christopher Nolan fans.
Barbenheimer, as fans have dubbed it, enjoying the biggest box office weekend since the pandemic, and even soaring past big screen hits like Super Mario Bros. And Spider-Man. Greta Gerwig's Barbie is making even more history.
So cool.
The film raking in the highest ever opening weekend for a female director.
This is the best day ever. It is the best day ever.
The massive earnings come as Hollywood is embracing a wave of nostalgia and hoping to avoid a downward spiral. From major titles underperforming during a summer movie slump to the impact of the ongoing writers and actors strikes, unions for both groups are asking the alliance that represents studios, including NBC Universal, for higher pay. Another summer surprise, Sound of Freedom, a controversial faith-based film about child trafficking that's already raked in $100 million at the box office.
Wow, this is the real world.
Studios hoping to replicate the success of the double screen battle will have to think outside the box.
And I don't know if we'll ever see something quite like this again.
Chances are near zero. Near zero.
As Barbenheimer has audiences tickled pink and Hollywood seeing green.
But will this Barbenheimer bonanza be enough to move the needle and get the unions and studios ready to make a deal? Well, that is the billion-dollar question. And some experts say these strikes will be over in a few weeks. Others say it could take months. And now with the millions made from Barbie and Oppenheimer and the boost to the bottom line from this past weekend alone, experts say the studios may not be feeling as pressured to reach a deal right now. Back to you.
All right, Kaylee, thank you so much. I didn't see Barbie this weekend, but I did pose in one of those Barbie boxes because they're everywhere. You can't escape them.
I love that.
You know, you got to do it.
Coming up, communicating without words.
Up next, we're sitting down with an expert to discuss how you can make your voice heard without opening your mouth. We're back now with some financial headlines. American Airlines has sweetened its labor contract offer to pilots.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us now with that and other news. Good morning.
Hey, Allison, good morning to you. Good morning, Joe. Yeah, so American Airlines Pilots Union has postponed a vote on a new contract that was scheduled to start today. And the move comes after American raised its offer by more than $1 billion. Last week, the union had warned ratification of the deal was in jeopardy. American says the changes will now match the pay rates and retroactive pay in rival United's tentative contract agreement. Apple stores are getting a new way to sell products. Bloomberg reports employees will now be able to have items shipped directly to customers through their Easy Pay point-of-sale machines. And that could be helpful if an item is out of stock, so the store doesn't have to risk losing a sale if a customer walks out and goes somewhere else. Also, if shoppers want to buy big items like an iMac or a Mac Pro, they can pay for it in store and not have to lug it home. And nearly half of Americans have at least one unused gift card, voucher, or store credit. A new report from Bankrate finds millennials are most likely to have unused gift cards. Roughly 40% of adults have made an effort to use gift cards more frequently over the past year, and that's due to economic concerns such as inflation and recession fears. The average amount is $187 per person, or a total of $23 billion nationwide, guys. I definitely have unused gift cards.
That's a lot of money.
That's a reminder I need to go through my.
I know, I have some, and I was thinking it was 20, but now I'm like, maybe more.
It might be more. All right.
Good
Thanks
reminder.
a lot for the reminder. Appreciate it.
You got it.
So when it comes to getting ahead at work, your body language can speak volumes, and that could be the key to your success.
Yeah, so get this. According to Psychologist World, human connection is only 20% verbal, but as much as 80% nonverbal. So whether you're collaborating with a colleague in a meeting or receiving feedback, your body language could make or break an outcome at the office. Joining us now is Linda Clemens. She's a nonverbal communications expert and the author of the new ebook, Back in Touch, Using the Power of Body Language to Connect Through COVID. Linda, thank you so much for being here with us. I'm excited to break this down. So help us understand this in the context of a workplace. How is body language impacting the way we work and the interactions that we have?
Thank you, Allison. And first of all, thank you both for having me here. Why is it so important is that human connection, it's actually 93% of our communication is nonverbal. And one of my favorite quotes is from Emerson, and it goes like this, you know, I cannot hear what you're saying because who you are being is getting in the way. So as a leader and in the workplace, you may say one thing, but your body language says something else. So if I'm sitting here and I say, oh, I'm so excited to be here with you, the words say one thing, but the body is saying something else. Even our moms and dads would say to us, act like you want to do it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's very critical that your words and your tone and your nonverbal in your communication is congruent.
Let's have you give us some examples here. What are some nonverbal things we can do to help create better communication?
Absolutely. So think of power zones. One of the things I learned, of course, with great posture, watching ballet dancers and news journalists. You all have great power because you have to sit up straight to show you being authentic. And it's having your power zones. What are power zones? The throat area, the chest area, and the belly button area. The desk is at the belly button to show being open. So as a leader and as someone communicating in the office, make sure that you do not have any barriers in front of you. Be open. And I have an acronym for your viewers. TAP. Think of tap dancing. Being truthful, authentic, and it shows up in the proof, TAP.
That's great.
I love that. So what about in this post-pandemic space, right? There are a lot of people who have not gone back to working in an office, and they may always work remote. When you're doing Zoom meetings and you're trying to connect with people, how do you take that same TAPS philosophy and apply it to a remote space?
Well, you know, when you're doing Zoom presentations, it's very important to show up. To be visible. My grandmother used to say, baby, what is seen is visible. You've got to make sure you show up. And you have to remember in the Zoom presentations, your environment is part of the nonverbal. What you have in the background, what do you have on your table? If a cat's running across the screen and you realize you don't have a cat, all this is important. And showing the upper carriage. So if you're sitting on your Zoom presentation and you're just the head, you see people do that, just a head on the screen, and you're wondering why your listeners are wanting spaghetti and meatballs because you look like a head on a plate. So you want to make sure that you're exposing your hands, your palms. People who are truthful and authentic when they're conveying information, the palms are exposed. So, we had a financial segment on earlier. If you're talking about finances or money and you're not showing your hands, it sends a signal to the brain, something's up.
I'm always told I have Tyrannosaurus Rex arms.
I know, I always move my hands too much. I'm like,
I think it's ludicrous. When I move, you move, right?
So we need to, all right. Are we doing okay? How have we
You're
been
doing great. You got good flow. You're doing good.
You don't know what's going on with the legs. The legs are a mess down here. Right? We're hiding all that, so it's all right. All right. Linda Clemens, this was a great conversation.
Thank you
so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
It was wonderful. Thank you for being here. Okay, so coming up, more and more Americans are actually heading to bed earlier and then getting up earlier.
So have we become a nation of early birds, especially when it comes to dining? I'm going to dig into what's behind the trend that's spreading all across the country. That's next.
Welcome back. You've heard of a haunted house, but what about a haunted horse? Well, over in England, a rocking horse is up for auction with a very spooky history. The auctioneer's website claims, quote, the vendor's grandfather was a medium and ghost hunter in the 1940s, and the horse was used for seances. The seller says she heard unexplained bangs while the horse was in the house and even claims it moved rooms when she went out. The horse is going to be auctioned at the end of the month in Kent with an estimate of around $380. The worst gift for a child somewhere.
The script said the perfect gift, and I was like, no.
Nope, I will not say it. The worst. That looks spooky. Right? No.
You just want screeching, creaking
God,
as you
I
ride
hate it.
And, yeah, all right.
I hate it.
Moving on, now to a topic close to our hearts here at Morning News Now. What seems like more proof that in the wake of the pandemic, we are becoming a nation of early birds. More Americans are going out to dinner earlier, going to sleep earlier, and it may be a trend that's here to stay. As some would say, 5 p.m. is the new 8 p.m. No matter the day, the line outside of Resdora forms early. It is 4:45 p.m. and you're waiting in line for dinner.
We are. And we're not 75. We're walking.
For Adriana and Francis, the early bird gets a seat at this popular New York restaurant. And they are not alone.
Yeah, it's always packed already.
What do you think of that?
It's nice because the vibe is the same, right?
Here at Resdora, they've noticed diners are much more flexible as we've emerged from the pandemic lockdown. Why on earth are people showing up earlier?
And I think that some of these hard to get into restaurants, if they know that that's all that they're given, 5 o'clock, they're going to take it.
A few blocks away at A Lily, the busiest time used to be in the 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. window. Now it's 6:30 to 7:30.
We've also seen a huge decrease in guests that are dining later. That 10 p.m. guest is not coming anymore.
Why this nationwide trend? Well, with more folks working from home, alone, once 5 o'clock hits, we're not just craving dinner, we're craving people. As the Wall Street Journal recently reported, America is becoming a nation of early birds. The story noted that, according to Yelp, between 2 and 5 p.m., restaurants are now seating 10% of their diners, up from 5% in 2019. And Uber trips to restaurants in the 4 p.m. hour are up 10% since 2019.
We have early dinners almost every weekend.
The numbers seem to defy that age-old stereotype about early dinner.
It's old people with blue hair.
Yeah, blue hair. Like special.
They're in bed by 8 o'clock.
A stereotype immortalized in Seinfeld.
Dinner? Well, what time is it?
It's 4:30.
4:30. Who eats dinner at 4:30?
By the time we sit down, it'll be 4:45.
I don't understand why we have to eat now.
We got to catch the early bird. It's only between 4:30 and 6.
The benefits of early dinner go beyond savings.
At the end of the day, you have a little bit more freedom and flexibility.
Medical experts even cite health benefits.
I sleep better and actually have lost weight.
We learned this year Jamie Lee Curtis loves her early bedtime, telling Today she wants to see daytime concerts.
Why are there no matinees?
Yes.
Okay, but seriously, I would love, for instance, I love Coldplay. I would love to go see Coldplay. I would love it. The problem is I'm not going to go see Coldplay if they start their show at 9 o'clock and there's an opening act. I want to hear Coldplay at 1 p.m.
At this rate, maybe that will happen as America becomes a flock
of early birds.
So this early dinner trend is great news for restaurants and their servers as they emerge from the challenges of the pandemic. They can turn their restaurants 3 times instead of 2 times, which means more sales, more tips. The general manager at Lilly also told me about another shift they've seen. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays can be just as busy as weekends. That's because many workers are actually going into the office on those days, then going out and socializing after, often doing so at 5 p.m. When is your ideal dinner?
Ideal 6, between 5:45 and 6.
Yeah, see, that's great,
Max. And
right?
growing up, we would go even earlier, though. We would always go for the early bird special. My
Yeah.
entire family would go at like 5.
My grandmother used to make supper at 4:30.
I
You would
think
have to
it's
get
great.
there, yeah.
Like
so.
I would, if I had a more consistent schedule, I would eat at 5. There's someone in my household who would push back, but I love it.
Turns out you're not alone. If you're trying to get a reservation, kind of harder to get at 5 o'clock now.
This story.
Exactly.
Bolster my case.
That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.